Charlotte looked in the direction she was being pushed and saw a large hangar door partially open and, unless her eyes were playing tricks on her, she saw other cribs being wheeled towards the opening from other places in the vast facility. She was torn between curiosity and terror at what was coming next. It was so much to take in. Just a few days ago she was a hot prospect as a journalist, now she was about to be sold as a baby slave. It was too fantastic to seem like it could be reality. The large doors loomed ever closer until Charlotte was pushed through them and out into a new room. This room was empty except for 5 other identical cribs. They were being placed on small and slightly raised platforms. Charlotte was breathing heavily as she was placed in her position. The nanny had no sooner attracted the wheels to put the crib on the ground than she turned away and headed back through the huge hangar door. Charlotte looked around at the other people in the other cribs and saw a vast array of emotions. 2 of the others, a young man and a slightly older woman, looked terrified and hysterical. One was laying down and seemed to be asleep or unconscious, and the last one was sucking on a pacifier and looked very calm. Charlotte noticed that this man, probably in his 30s, was in a very wet diaper already. After Charlotte, 3 more cribs were wheeled in and placed in the correct positions. These people also seemed rather panicky and disbelieving of what was happening. The hangar doors closed and left a very eerie atmosphere. The people in the cribs looked like they were making a lot of noise, but thanks to the thick glass and small breathing holes it was virtually muted. There was silence for a few minutes and Charlotte felt a heightened sense of awareness as she looked around at everyone else. This was too surreal for her to have a normal reaction. She was still expecting people to come running in with camcorders and saying that it had been a prank. With an almighty roar which echoed around the large and almost empty room, Charlotte looked straight up and saw the ceiling far above them sliding open. "What the hell?" Charlotte yelled, though her voice was lost in the noise. When the ceiling was opened and the sound died down, Charlotte could see the starry sky above. It must have been the middle of the night and it looked beautiful. Charlotte was able to just appreciate the outside world for a few seconds before she was brought back to reality. "We hope you have enjoyed your time at Stork Industries." A voice crackled from the loudspeaker system. "We wish you a happy second babyhood." "Fuck you!" Charlotte yelled in impotent rage. A loud humming noise slowly got louder and louder until Charlotte looked up and saw something she recognized as a drone descending on the cribs. Not just one, but one per person. The drones were shaped so as to look like a stork, and the idea of a stork delivering a baby was lost on Charlotte, who was far too panicked to think about that. The drones were very large and looked very powerful. Charlotte winced as one landed on the ceiling of her crib and she heard the same screwdriver sounds which she assumed meant she was attached to the drone. She belatedly realized what was about to happen and her eyes flew wide. No. Charlotte made one last desperate attempt for escape. She pushed and pulled on the bars of the crib with all of her might. She had to get out. This was her last chance. Despite all her efforts, there was no movement from the bars. She was utterly trapped. The humming got suddenly louder and Charlotte watched as the crib nearest her lifted off the floor. The man in the crib looked at Charlotte as if pleading for help before he was lifted up and out of sight. One by one the cribs were lifted up the shaft and out of sight. Charlotte's was the second last to go. She felt a shake similar to turbulence as she lifted off the ground and started ascending the concrete shaft and out into a clearing in the forest. Charlotte looked around in wonder as if hoping there was someone nearby who might be seeing what was happening, but in the pitch-black darkness she was fairly sure if anyone did look they would write it off as a weather balloon or something. The crib went higher and higher before starting to move horizontally. Before long, Charlotte had lost sight of the facility and she was completely on her own and naked, except for the diaper, in the flying crib. It looked like it should be cold, but there seemed to be a heating system in the crib that acted as a sort of radiator. She was quite comfortable even without clothes on. Charlotte had no idea where she was being taken, and after an hour or so in the air she started to become restless with just looking at the scenery. She remembered all of the things that Nanny had placed at the foot of the crib, thought now was as good of a time as any to see what she had been given. Charlotte moved the bottles of milk and pacifier out of the way and grabbed the bag that had also been given to her. She emptied it out and the first thing she saw was a small tablet. The screen was turned off and Charlotte was intrigued by it. She pressed the power button and a video started playing very soon afterwards. "Hello, Charlotte." Charlotte frowned in anger. It was Laura on the screen. "As you are no doubt aware, you have been sold to another person as a baby. We can now tell you where you will be going and who you will be staying with." Charlotte felt her anger rise until she could feel herself shaking. "The couple that have bought you live in Bremen, Germany." Laura continued as she read information off a piece of paper. "Paid a high price, you should be very well looked after. They are in their late 20s and have been looking forward to getting a young woman for a while." "Germany?" Charlotte repeated in disbelief. This crib was going all the way to Germany. Charlotte didn't really think about it as she felt her bladder relax and a warm flow of urine was absorbed into the padding between her legs. "The journey will take some time, so you have been given enough supplies to last the whole way. Good luck." Laura gave the camera one last smile before the screen went blank. Charlotte placed the screen to the side and looked at what else was in the crib. Some spare diapers, some wipes, a few tins of baby food. Everything a baby would need to be sustained for the journey.